They feared the darkness. Then humanity became it. It is the title of the story. In this story, we discuss a future where humanity discovers a mysterious signal from deep space. Optimism turns to horror as the crew of a deep space mission awakens an ancient, sentient darkness. As the void infiltrates Earth, transforming minds and rewriting reality, humanity chooses not to resist, but to evolve. Shedding flesh and light, they become the Nocturne, beings of living shadow, unbound by time or physics, feared by alien civilizations and worshipped by some. The Nocturne spread not through conquest, but inevitability. This is a story of humanity's final transformation, not into monsters, but into what they were always destined to become, the darkness itself. The stars pulsed once, just once, then fell silent. Commander Ilya Ward stood alone in the observatory chamber of the Solace, eyes fixed on the rendered pattern, replaying across the curved hollow glass. A fractal rhythm, mathematically perfect. Unearthly. Behind her, a low hum buzzed from a quantum drive spinning in preparation for humanity's most daring journey yet. The rest of the crew bustled through corridors and command decks, their movements efficient, clinical, tinged with nervous electricity that even military training couldn't suppress. The signal had come 2 years prior. Not a voice, not a language, but geometry. A wave of coded pulses transmitted from a starless void between galaxies. The world's greatest minds had confirmed the impossible. It originated from intelligent design. What followed was a moment unseen in Earth's fractured history, unity. Ilya had been chosen to lead the mission not because of her loyalty, but because of her survival. She had endured Earth's last war, had stared into the barrel of extinction, and blinked. Politicians admired her control. Soldiers respected her instinct. Scientists, though, feared her. They said she had too little wonder left. Now she was here, waiting for silence to speak. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. The voice of the ship's AI, clean and clipped, filtered in. Commander Ward, bridge requests your presence. Dr. Halden reports an anomaly in the signal data. Ilya turned, jaw clenched, eyes lingering on the pulsing echo one last time. On my way. The bridge glowed in cold hues of blue and white, a cathedral of precision. Dr. Liz Halden stood hunched over a table-sized interface, her fingers flitting through spectral graphs and overlapping pulses. Her eyes were shadowed by fatigue, but they gleamed with obsession. Talk to me, Ilya said. Halden didn't look up. It's changing. The signal? Not exactly. It's like a reply, but not to us. It's replying to itself. The original pattern has decayed by less than 1%, but that 1% is intentional. It's evolving, Commander. Ilya stepped forward, studying the data, though she understood little of its meaning. Are we sure it's not a system artifact? Halden's laugh was dry. If it is, then the artifact is smarter than we are. From the comm panel, Lieutenant Ray Solano's voice crackled through. Approaching destination. Visual feed coming online. The screens flickered, then revealed a graveyard of lightless stones orbiting a collapsed black dwarf star. Debris drifted in perfect stillness, frozen monuments to a long-dead system. No atmosphere, no thermal activity. The coordinates matched the signal source precisely. Nothing alive, Solano muttered. Nothing recent. Ilya narrowed her gaze. Bring us into polar orbit. Scan for artificial structures. They didn't have to scan long. An hour later, the Solace hovered above the largest of the dead rocks. A single structure jutted from its crust, tall, monolithic, and carved with intricate spirals that resembled language but refused translation. At its base, a broken hatchet opened like a wound. A landing team was dispatched. Ilya led it herself. Inside the structure, silence pressed against their suits like deep water. No power, no warmth, just rooms etched in impossible geometry. Curved hallways that led back to themselves, angles that whispered when unobserved. They found no bodies, only husks, organic, fused into the walls, fossilized midscream. One chamber held a device resembling an obelisk, scorched and cracked. It pulsed faintly when approached. Halden's voice came through the comms. The pulse is identical to the one we've been tracking. That device, whatever it is the signal. Ilya stared at it. Then who built it? Better question, Solano muttered. Why is it still transmitting? The obelisk flickered. Just once. Then again. The crew returned to the solace. Shaken. Quarantine protocols were activated, but Ilya felt something had already changed. People were quieter. The air colder. The silence outside the ship no longer felt empty, but occupied. On the third night after return, technician Kareem Doss was found speaking in his sleep. Words no language recognized, uttered in perfect cadence, with black tears streaming from his eyes. By morning he was gone. Not dead, gone. His bunk empty, his biosignature erased from the ship's logs, as if he had never existed. AI systems began to fail one by one, only to reboot with corrupted files labeled in symbols that resembled the monolith spirals. Halden grew increasingly erratic, claiming she could feel the math breathing. Ilya demanded answers, but none came. Not from science. Not from faith. Only the signal pulsed on, now mimicked by the ship's core itself. One beat every 11 minutes. Then the stars began to dim, not from light years away, but within the Solace's own skylens. As if darkness were not merely the absence of light, but something sentient spreading inward. And always the signal pulsed. On the 7th day, Commander Ilya Ward stood again in the observatory chamber. Fists tight, her reflection a phantom against the black horizon. She whispered to the void, not expecting a reply. It gave her one anyway, in a voice like shattered mirrors. We feared the light until we knew it lied. She turned. The reflection did not. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She just asked, "Were you?" The reply came, not as sound, but as understanding. Too vast for language, too deep for time. Not what, when, not who, where, not enemy. Inheritance. And with that, the darkness smiled. Ask ChatGPT. The first cities to fall were the ones closest to the sky. High-altitude satellites, orbiting telescopes, weather stations. Gone in hours. Not destroyed, not disabled. Simply vanished. Their signals ceased. Their materials missing. Their memory erased. The organizations responsible for them blinked, checked diagnostics. Blinked again. But they were already too late. At ground level, the panic took longer to spread. Earth's population was still celebrating the Solace's return, still glued to broadcast of Commander Ilya Ward's somber face and Dr. Halden's quietly delivered briefings. The official story was incomplete. Non-hostile encounter with unknown signal source. No survivors lost. Debriefing and quarantine protocols in effect. The lie was precise, confident, clean. It didn't last. 3 nights after arrival, something leaked. Not from the ship, but through it. People near the landing zone in Patagonia began to dream in spirals, great curving tunnels of black geometry, descending toward an unseen pulse. Some awoke screaming. Others awoke changed. A shepherd tore his eyes out and wandered into a ravine. A child drew a complex symbol in charcoal across her entire house, and when authorities arrived, she told them her hands weren't hers anymore. The family dog had died 2 days prior. It was standing beside her, eyes entirely black. The global net erupted in fractured disbelief. Journalists fought for truth and airtime. Governments scrambled for control. The internet stuttered. Then, in the silence that followed, the Solace's orbit broke, and it came home. No engines. No signal. It simply descended, as if gravity were a choice. Ilya Ward stepped onto the tarmac, alone, without a helmet, without ceremony. She walked to a biohazard perimeter untouched, her uniform darkened to an unnatural shade, the stripes on her shoulders shifting gently like smoke beneath cloth. When the soldiers approached, they froze. Some fell to their knees. Others forgot their names. She looked at the general, waiting to greet her. She didn't smile, didn't blink. Her voice was low, harmonic, layered. "It's awake." The general never reported back. By morning, entire sections of the world's defense satellites were broadcasting black patterns. Not interference. A code. A countdown. To what no one knew. Scientists tried to interpret it. Theoretical physicists wept. Language AI crashed trying to mimic its logic. Dr. Halden, barely functional, was kept in a government facility deep beneath the Andes. She scribbled in silence, hand trembling, pages filled with spiraling math that curled in on itself. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark. When asked what she saw, she whispered, "It's not coming. It's already here." The conflict wasn't war, not in the old sense. There were no fleets, no armies, no formal declaration, only the slow unraveling of what humanity thought immutable. Light itself began to falter. At first, it was subtle. Flashlights that dimmed near ancient fault lines, solar panels that reported negative energy readings. Then, more profoundly, stars faded from the night sky, not because they died, but because something blocked them. Cities under artificial lighting suffered sudden blackouts with no electrical cause. Pilots began to report missing constellations in patches of void that swallowed radar signals like water down a drain. Religious panic swept across regions. Some called it a divine test, others a reckoning. Cults formed overnight, painting their bodies black and whispering odes to the voice in the night. They waited in fields under the moonless sky, listening, and then the voice spoke. Not in words, not in broadcast, in thought. It moved through humanity's dreams, through the unconscious layers of networked minds. It showed visions, impossible futures, sublime horrors. Cities made of silence, stars bound in chains of memory, a mirror of humanity wearing a darker face, gazing back through time. Those who resisted fell ill. Some died. Those who accepted changed. Commander Ilya Ward became the first. She stood before the world's emergency council, what was left of it, and offered a choice. Her voice was her own, but deeper now, touched by something beneath language. "There is no enemy," she said, "only inheritance. We were born of light, but shaped in void. You feel it, don't you? The gravity pulling backward, the lies of light peeling away." A prime minister stood to object. His skin began to smoke. No fire, just dissolution. He screamed, not in pain, but in revelation. Ward continued, "We're not being conquered. We're being corrected." The council disbanded within minutes. Some nations surrendered to her immediately, not from fear, but from awe. Others collapsed internally, torn by conflicting ideologies. Embrace the darkness or die in the light. New technologies began to surface, eclipse fields, black energy cores that nullified entropy. People who stepped into them reported lucid visions, accelerated thought, expanded perception. Some never came out. The lines of biology blurred. Shadows moved when no one did. Humans began exhibiting traits beyond comprehension. Thought sharing, delayed aging, control of dark space gravitational bands. It was evolution rewritten. And through it all, the voice remained, silent now but ever present. Resistance emerged, scattered and desperate. Scientists, soldiers, theologians, they hid in hollowed mountains, clinging to old sun lamps and printed books. Try to remember what it meant to be human. They named the new threat to becoming. But the truth was simpler. Humanity wasn't being erased. It was becoming what it had feared most. And somewhere, deep beneath the vault of dying satellites and whispering stars, Dr. Halden opened her eyes fully for the first time in days. "I understand now," she breathed. "We didn't bring it back." Her eyes turned black. "It brought us home." The Namari High Council convened in orbit above the ruined remains of the planet Urix. No one spoke for 17 minutes, an eternity by galactic standards. The stars outside the crystalline chamber were dim, not due to distance or obstruction, but as if consciousness itself had fled from that sector. Ambassador Drain of the ISRF finally broke the silence, his 1,000 eyes trembling. "It is not a species," he said. "It is a shift in the definition of existence." At the center of the chamber hovered a static recording from the last probe sent into human space. The image was corrupted, blistered with fractures of time-loop darkness, but clear enough to show what had once been Earth. Its atmosphere no longer refracted light. It bent it. Around the planet's silhouette spiraled enormous ribbons of motionless shadow, tethered to an unseen core. No recognizable civilization remained. Only a lattice of structures suspended above tectonic crust, each one pulsing to a rhythm none of the Council dared identify. The Isoreth had cataloged 6,000 species in the known galactic register. They had archived mass extinctions, star killers, even gods rendered into data. But they had never seen a species voluntarily dissolve its biological template in favor of a conceptual evolution. Humanity had not died. It had shed its skin. They called themselves the Nocturne now. What troubled the Council most wasn't that Earth had changed. It was that time around it had slowed, as if the planet were drawing in not only matter and energy, but chronology itself. Observers placed too close to the gravitational threshold reported losing days, weeks, memories. One envoy returned speaking in reverse sequences of sound and smiling endlessly until it crumbled into soot. The Calvec war mind urged immediate eradication. We must strike now, before they expand again, before they rewrite more the void. But none could say where the Nocturne truly ended. Their ships didn't use engines, their presence didn't disturb vacuum, and their minds were no longer measurable. Only one fact remained indisputable. The darkness was spreading. On the surface of what was once Titan, Commander Ilya Ward stood watching the moons dissolve. Her body no longer cast a shadow. She was one, a sentient silhouette composed of fluctuating mass and conceptual density. Thought rippled across her like tides. She no longer used a mouth to speak, but the memory of one allowed her to communicate with the unbound. 3 others stood with her, not lieutenants, not followers, echoes, reflections of human archetypes reconfigured to anchor the Nocturne's collective will. Liz Halden, once a scientist, now the keeper constructs. Her eyes were pinholes to folded space, and her breath could distort time. Ray Solano, formerly a soldier, now the warden of boundaries, encased in drifting armor that hummed with non-light. And the final echo, the only one who still held a human name. Almari, a child born post-becoming, whose voice could shape reality's edge. Ilya turned to them, her thoughts echoing across the field. They're forming a union. They think we're still reachable. Amari tilted her head. Are we? Halden responded in the slow tongue of recursion. They watched us bury our flesh. What else would convince them? In orbit, the first of the alien coalition fleets arrived. Colossal constructs shaped like crystalline serpents, gold-fused dreadnoughts carrying the weight of dying civilizations. They announced themselves with no ceremony. The Nocturne did not respond, so the coalition acted. Within moments, antimatter detonations rained toward Earth's orbit, violent, precise, mathematically flawless. But none landed, not because of shielding, not because of countermeasures. Because the space they traveled through ceased to behave as expected. Time staggered, distance folded. Light became memory, and memory became vapor. The warheads arrived in reverse. The coalition watched in horror as their weapons undid themselves, becoming metal, then ore, then intention. And from the Earth's shadowed atmosphere rose forms no scanner could classify. They resembled ships only because the mind required shapes. Great wing geometries of fluctuating density, half thought, half machine. Each one a broadcast of collective will, propelled not by force, but by certainty. The Nocturne had not responded in defense. They had responded in recognition. Ilya stood above the launch field of the Nocturne core, watching as the constructs took flight. Not in conquest, but in declaration. They no longer sought dominion. They sought completion. From within her mind, a fragment of the voice stirred. Not the entity itself, but a splinter. It hummed like a song she hadn't heard since childhood. Are we wrong? She asked it. And from within it whispered, You are not wrong. You are inevitable. In the rebellion's last stronghold, an artificial station called Bastion's Light, scientist and resistance leader Kalen Reese watched the fleets burn without fire. His people, the last remnants of unaltered humanity, stared silently as the laws they understood collapsed one by one. He turned to his daughter, Elin, born under artificial stars, her skin pale from filtered sunlight. If we run, she asked, will they follow? Kalen answered without looking at her. They don't need to follow. We already belong to them. The darkness, after all, was not a force to chase. It was the home humanity had forgotten, and now remembered too well. Ask ChatGPT. The last envoy arrived alone. His ship, a living vessel woven from the nervous systems of extinct giants, glided into the edge of the Nocturne expanse, where stars no longer burned but flickered like the remnants of memory. The envoy's name was Zev Malek, war priest of the Luminal Order, last chosen voice of the unified Dawn Accord. He had not come to bargain, not to beg. He had come to understand. He disembarked onto a platform suspended above a sea of nothing, not emptiness, absence, a smooth, fluid blackness that drank in all vibration, all reflection, a void that had direction, hunger, and possibly thought. In the distance, towers shimmered in and out of visibility, built from shapes that refused to be remembered once unseen. There were no guards, no emissaries, only stillness. Then a shape descended, not with sound nor gravity, but with authority. Commander Ilya Ward, now fully unbound from the biology she once wore, appeared before Zev like a concept being remembered. She bore the silhouette of human, but her edges blurred, her body composed of layers of overlapping meanings, flickering between states of presence and suggestion. Her voice came as a choice in his mind, a question answered before it was asked. You came to witness, not to resist. Zev stood firm, though he felt his soul beginning to fragment under her gaze. I came because I need to know what you become. She moved closer, not with steps, but as if reality bent to her nearness. We become the silence between stars, the answer to your unasked fears, the shadow cast by your brightest hopes. He held his staff tighter. You were us once, human, fragile, afraid. And that was our chrysalis, she replied. We broke it. You wrapped yours tighter. Behind her, the void stirred. In its depths moved the shapes of others, Halden, Solano, Amari, the echoes watching. Their forms whispered with knowledge too old to name. Above, in the thick black sky, the stars were gone, not extinguished, but hidden, as if ashamed of what had emerged from the dark. Zev stepped forward. You've unmade the laws that bind us all. You rewrite physics as if it were poetry. You bend time, memory, meaning. Ward didn't deny it, because the laws were lies, crutches for minds not yet ready to walk. But we have walked, Zev, into the dark, and we did not lose ourselves. We found ourselves. He looked past her into the abyss. He saw 1,000 versions of Earth blooming like fungi across galaxies, worlds forged from thought, not matter, lives lived in loops of meaning and shadow, a network of minds not enslaved, but utterly free of linearity. And yet, something lingered, a sharp ache, a question he could not dismiss. At what cost? Ilya's expression didn't shift, only what you were too afraid to give. He hesitated, then lowered his head. And what do you want from the rest of us? We want nothing, she said. We no longer hunger. We no longer need. Then why spread? Because existence is not a boundary. It is an invitation. And we are the answer that waits in every silent corner of the universe. He fell quiet. Windless silence wrapped the scene. Somewhere, an old prayer flickered in the back of his mind. One his ancestors once whispered into starlight. May we walk in brightness. May we never be lost. He opened his eyes. And if we refuse, Ward stepped back, fading slightly at the edges. Then you will remain as you are, bright, fragile, dying. You will live in fear of the night, until it becomes you too. Behind Zev, the stars shimmered faintly once more, not returning, but being remembered. The Nocturne were not conquerors. They were inevitabilities. A future pulled from the hidden thoughts of every being who ever looked into the dark and whispered, What's waiting for me there? Zev turned, boarding his vessel once more. As it rose, he felt time flex, bending around the moment. One day, he would tell others. Most wouldn't believe. Some would resist. A few would listen too closely and vanish. The Nocturne did not follow. They didn't need to, because every shadow cast by every sentient being, no matter how small, now whispered a simple truth. You feared the darkness, but we remembered it was home.